うわ、私としたことがこんなのクラじゃ。ニコさん、うるせえ。勝利の涙もたまにはいいだろ。はい。
Mikadono Sisters episode number 8, my friends, and another banger episode. I was so happy to see. One of the things that is rare, and my hat's crooked. But one of the things, my friends, that is rare in the anime seasonal world, right, is anime that come out and either progressively get better as the season progresses. That's one rarity in seasonal anime. And the other thing that's a rarity, which is kind of sad to say, but it's an anime that kind of like out the gate produces high quality and just kind of keeps that as the season goes on. For me, just a couple of a couple of anime this season to me is, well, I think there's a few that are really just bangers, and there's a few that are just like the biggest wet farts in the world that were just like super high potential. But anyways, I don't get that. Dealing with the Mikadono sisters, which we're talking about today, right? And this was all about Nico. This episode was incredible. Emotional moments between you and between Nico. And I'm going to talk about the ED in a second too. But, you know, dealing with the Mikadono sisters, top notch. Silent Witch, top tier, top notch. Just quality, like high bar, high quality, and is just every episode just nailing it. The flowers, the flowers that bloom unto you. Flowers bloom unto you. The fragrant flowers bloom. Just incredible. And then obviously I gotta throw my Dress Up Darling in there. That's a returning anime, so it doesn't really count. But like, so there's just some anime this season. Like, and if you haven't watched those 3 new ones or the next season of My Dress Up Darling, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, these are just like incredible, like probably like 9 out of 10 animes. And trust me, if you go look at my anime list, your favorite anime is probably like a high 8. A high 7 at best. Trust me, I do it all the time, and I get just like, yo, what are people thinking out here? So, with that in mind, dealing with the Mikadono sisters, episode 8, all focused around Nico. And one of the things that has set such a high bar for the show is the effing ED. The budget must be crazy because it's so rare where each ED is customized. And right now, if you look at the ED, you know, the ED was all focused around Nico and her being really feminine. And I think that is just like incredibly cute and is incredibly endearing, incredibly dope. And it's all centered around her being very cutesy and coming home to you, right? She's coming home and, she's coming home to you. You know, she's thanking for being home. There's a couple of slides of her, you know, drinking some boba, checking her phone. Again, being a very girly girl. And it totally makes sense for it to transition to that because at the end of the episode where she finally overcomes her past mentor, you know, the person that she looked up to, she overcomes him, and she does that with like the power of family and the power of love kind of way, you know, in a way. And she overcomes all that, and then she basically falls into Yu's arms. And, you know, the boys that are in her club even kind of blush a little bit because she shows like facial expressions and a side of her that they've never seen before. Because at the end of the day, you know, she's a little bit masculine. She has a lot of masculine energy. You know, she's in a sport that would be considered a masculine sport, right? It's not only men, but like you would consider it more of a masculine sport. Like boxing, you know, karate, boxing, Muay Thai, stuff like that. You consider more of a masculine sport, although that is changing, you know, year over year. But you would consider it that, and she kind of wears or has kind of had that as like a badge of honor. So with others kind of noticing like, oh, she's super feminine, and the other part of it is like she's also super pretty. Like she's a super like gorgeous girl. She just dresses and acts and, you know, in a way. So when they see that, it's like a big moment. So I love that she was able to kind of show that publicly. I love that her and you got closer at the end of the episode. I love that she overcame her bad habits, right? Because one of the things that her friend, had kind of said as they were fighting was like, oh, she is a embodiment of traditional karate or whatever. Like she is, like she is like by the book. So when she breaks those shackles, she's kind of like showing who she really is. Like she's more than just by the book. She's more than just by, you know what I mean? So that was a big moment to me and in the show, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. Also, wasting all that time on you was a little bit frustrating just because much like a lot of you guys and myself kind of, we're talking about in the comments last week is he's going to do all this training just to instantly get his ass kicked. And that's exactly what happened. He basically just got instantly just bodied, and then it all became about Nico, against this dude. Before that, a lot of cute moments that were shared, as Nico and you were preparing and getting trained. And then the first portion of the show was about the girls from last week. It was about Kazuki and Miwa kind of setting up like, oh, they want to do something special. So they end up making, with Yu's help, they end up making like a dish that is Nico's favorite. So like everything just kind of like came together, which thankfully, like, yes, because last week I was definitely complaining, right? I think last week was probably the worst episode of the season, even though I know I mentioned like, hey, this is on a generational run, blah, 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 blah. I still say last week was, you could put it in a good episode pile still. It doesn't detriment the show. But one of the things I was talking about last week was like, oh, I hate it when shows set up a character to have to go do something to do something else. Or like in this sense, Nico got put into a box by this Hayato dude, like, oh, I have to beat him to do whatever I want, which is stupid. So I'm glad this week was such an amazing episode of this show. Because overall, the show has just been really, really great. So anyways, a fantastic week of Mikadono Sisters. I think this was a 9 out of 10 episode for me. I love the beginning. I thought it was so cute. I love the training between Nico and between you. I thought that was so cute. I love seeing her overcome her adversity. I thought that was cool. And then at the end of it, I love seeing, her kind of like fall into Yu's arms and stuff. I thought that was so cute. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. But much, much better week, much better episode. I'll see you guys next week for episode number 9? Question mark? Yeah, episode number 9. All right, friends. Deuces.